So, guess we just saw the new Mission Impossible. This guy. Bum, 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 bum. Aloha, movie lovers. Welcome to New Movie Tuesdays. I'm your host, Matthew Salanoa, director and podcaster. And yes, I have just seen the new Mission Impossible Final Reckoning. I think it was originally Dead Reckoning Part 2. And I gotta say, okay, you've stumbled across my channel somehow, and I appreciate you giving me the views, bro. Let me tell you, if you haven't watched it yet, the action is excellent. Every action sequence is worth the price of admission. Tom Cruise has a fight scene in his underwear. It's a knife fight. Having done a knife fight myself, it's pretty fun. It was really fun to watch that because you don't really, even though it's in the trailer, you don't really see it coming. It's just that he's in his underwear and suddenly a dude comes at him with a knife, and it's a crazy fun fight. I have to shout out Palm Clementif. I hope I'm saying her name right. We all know her as Mantis from the Guardians of the Galaxy. I love her. She's awesome in this movie. Haley Atwell, who is Peggy Carter or Captain Carter. We got some heroes from the MCU. And let me say, this movie reminds me of the Avengers when Tom Cruise goes into the DEF CON shelter where the president is to get his mission. I feel like we're walking through the Avengers Shield set from the first Avengers movie. So this movie has some references to other comic book properties that is very pointed, very obvious. I do appreciate as a fan of that stuff, but wow. But shout out to Palm Clementif because she was so kick-ass in this movie. I see like a very big action career for her if that's what she wants ahead of her, because she totally delivers. She got the choreography down. You see the way she moves. It's so wicked and slick. This is one of the few times in one of these movies where I feel like, oh, somebody can keep up with Tom Cruise. And Haley Atwell, to her, I got a shout out to her as well, because we got a little taste of her in Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, which I still enjoy. But to see her in this movie playing a bit more of the action role, I wish they gave her more action. It's fine what they gave her, but I wish they gave her a bit more. But she's another person who I think holds her own on screen. And, my hope was, however this movie ends, that she'll continue also doing more of these action movies, because here's two actresses who I think really they hold their own on screen. They've got a great screen presence, and when the action happens, I buy them being in their part of it. So, and I got a shout out to the opening action sequence of this movie, which is hilarious. It's a bait and switch type of scene where you don't know exactly where it's going to go, and then something happens. I'll say it in the spoilers. Something happens where a lot of action happens off screen, and you're just watching Haley Atwell watch it, and that is the funniest, one of the best Mission Impossible moments of all time, because I had a feeling there's a scene that precedes this action sequence where I thought, oh, are they really going to show a fight now? Because it would kind of be funny if they didn't show the fight, the way they're setting up this scene. And then that's exactly how this scene goes, because it's the scene that precedes this. And all of a sudden, they're not showing the fight. But you're just watching Haley Atwell go, oh, ah. And you're like, what is happening? Well, I need to know. And then when they show you what happened, it's like, oh my, okay, wow. Whatever we didn't see, when we see the aftermath, this is one of those worth the price of admission moments. Lots of fun stuff like that in this movie. Visually, very fantastic. As the trailer shows, the movie promises. I think one of my favorite visuals is Tom Cruise under the ice. I don't know how they achieved that. I'm hoping it was special effects and he wasn't, or visual effects, and he wasn't really under ice, but that was a fantastic visual, one of my favorite visuals of the movie. Yeah, there's a lot of beautiful stuff that's worth seeing. That's again worth the price of admission to check out this movie. And then the finale. Let me tell you, my one complaint, and not even really a complaint, because I enjoy all the Mission Impossibles. The first one's still my favorite, and I'll talk about that in the spoilers. But my one issue with all of the Mission Impossible movies since the first one is that no matter how dangerous the stunts are, I never quite feel that Tom Cruise is in mortal danger. I feel like the ending of the first movie on that bullet train is such an exciting, exhilarating sequence. And just because it is his first time, I mean, the Tom Cruise character going through that, you feel like he's going to die. And that just amps up the excitement because it's just one of those sequences that's just so full of tension and literally the air blasting in the face. And even though it's a huge special effects sequence, I am more worried about him in that movie than any other action sequence in any of the movies, except maybe a little bit in the beginning of the second movie when he's rock climbing. Because those are things, in that case, that was like the first really real dangerous stunt where he's out in the elements and who knows what could happen. But I gotta say, the finale, the final action sequence, I was like, okay, you got me back. It took 7 movies to finally get a finale where I really was like, how the hell? Like, how are you going to get through this? It was a very exhilarating movie, entertainment from beginning to end. If you are like a Fast and the Furious fan, that's basically what this franchise became after the fourth, or during the fourth movie. Just, balls out action. And this movie is really 90% action, 85% plot, and 10% elements of character. You know what I mean? For you story fans, people who really like a good deep story, and people who are like me, fans of the very first movie, it's nowhere near the first movie. The character development is at its least in this movie, which it does hold it back. And kind of funny, I did watch their spoiler-free review of the movie first because I just was so excited for this movie. The trailers are incredible, and the movie delivers for the most part. And they warned that the first 45 minutes of the movie is a bit laborious connecting the other movies together. And I would say those are the parts I'm less interested while watching the movie. I do think the connectivity part, but there's a certain character they bring back from the first movie. I like his story. I think that's a nice little thread that's in the movie. And it's a thread. There's not really storytelling in this movie, but the action is nonstop. So I'd say if you are just looking for that mental break from reality and you want an amazing adventure, and I think, there's a hint of social messaging that, hey, you need to get off the internet a little bit. You know what I mean? But other than that, I don't think it's not a very deep movie, but I do appreciate Tom Cruise's message at the start of the movie. Tom Cruise introduces the movie, and you could tell they really put their heart and souls into making just the biggest action event they could possibly make, utilizing this franchise. And I think on that level it delivers. So as spoiler free as I can get, most of the team from across the movies returns, kind of like the fan favorites, I guess, and the most important characters from the previous movie, because this is technically Dead Reckoning Part 2. But yeah, I gotta say, I once the action really kicks off, just like as Kind of Funny promised, I was having a good time. And I did watch a couple very bad movies this past weekend. So despite the fact that this movie doesn't really have a lot of storytelling going on, at least it does have a lot of emotionally gripping moments. And when the characters are allowed to kind of care for each other and be invested in each other, I'm totally dialed in. I'm locked in. I think that's the testament to this movie. And I do appreciate that they really tried to give us a unique set of action sequences, a kind of a hodgepodge of what is the ultimate stuff we can put Ethan Hunt through to really test him all the way to the very last second of the movie. And And that's what the back 2 hours of this movie is, as Kind of Funny said. That's absolutely what the back 2 hours of this movie delivers. Is what is all the craziest stuff we can do to this guy to push his absolute limits and really see where the story can go. So I think action wise, entertainment wise, and thankfully, it's competent filmmaking, even though I would say the story was lacking. The filmmaking is competent. Like I said, I watched two bad movies that I'm not going to name, and those movies were one of those movies in particular was so atrociously poorly made that I'm actually not going to review that movie. I was going to. The other one was just kind of bad, but not terrible. And then the second one was awful. It was just wow. You know what I mean? Like, people are out there making movies like that, and wow, okay, that exists. So to have gone through that over the weekend, and even for whatever flaws Mission Impossible 7 has, or 8 has, I'm just grateful, like, hey, I see the work put in, and I appreciate it, because especially as Tom Cruise is one of the producers for this whole series, I do appreciate that he tested himself. It's you could say I think it's Kind of Funny said a vanity project or whatever, but whatever. If you love making movies and you have the ability to make them, guess what? You're gonna make them. And so I just appreciate that. Hey, if you're gonna make them and then you're gonna put yourself through the physical, torturous situations that Tom Cruise must have put himself in, just to make the movie as exciting as it is. Like I remember seeing some of the behind the scenes on the plane stuff just last week, and I was like, whoa, okay. And I can't even tell you where those shots are in the movie. When I was watching the whole finale, I was just like, damn. Like, again, my thing that I appreciate most is that finally we have a finale that at least comes somewhat close to me actually worrying about whether Ethan Hunt's going to make it out or not, because I feel absolutely like everything since 3, even though 3 was a good movie and had a good ending, I just felt like none of them have really tested him. At the very least, with Mission Impossible 2, it was a very personal final battle between two physical adversaries that was really built up across that movie. I still really love Mission Impossible 2. But other than that, like, I think the strength of that first movie is that ending. And, like, is he going to make it? Is he even going to make it? And this movie delivers on that again, where it's like, is he going to make it? Is Ethan Hunt going to make it? They really push the movie to that point, and I was very satisfied with how they got there. So that's all I can say, spoiler free. It's just an exhilarating experience. So if you don't want spoilers, do not watch after the popcorn stops, because once the popcorn starts, it's all spoilers, baby. But that's my recommendation, spoiler free. If you're into exhilarating action, you just need to turn that brain off for a minute, because the world is a menacing and terrible place, and you just need that mental break to enjoy a movie and not worry about the universe. Ironically, much of this movie is about how the world is falling apart, so good luck with that. But yeah, I appreciated what a good time this movie was, competently made. And my only complaint is I do wish there was a little bit more story, just because it is the last one, or it feels like it's the last one. And I would have liked just something a little closer to that first movie. There's not much spy work at all. There's zero spy work in this movie, and just not enough of all the characters and cast gelling together, and kind of, not that we need to get into their lives, but I just would have appreciated just a little bit more of what we had in that first movie, or even the second and third movie, where there's some scenes to really give us some grounding on who the characters are and how they all relate and are friends, so that when we reach that finale, it just has an extra oomph of triumph or not triumph. You have to watch the movie to find out which way it goes. But actually, you can probably assume it's probably triumph. But I won't say how. I won't say whether Ethan Hunt lives or not. It really is pushed to the last minute. So That's my spoiler-free thoughts. Stick around for the popcorn for my favorite scenes and criticisms, and which kind of I've already hinted at them there. But yeah, stick around the popcorn for all my spoilery thoughts. All right, here we go. All right, spoiler full thoughts on Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. I'd say right off the bat, we get Tom Cruise getting a VHS tape, very retro, very fun, and it's Angela Bassett's voiceover. Now she's the one with the mission if you choose to accept it. Interesting. And I feel like I'm on this little Angela Bassett binge right now because I've been watching American Horror Story with Angela Bassett. She shows up in the third season, and I'm on season 4 of American Horror Story. I am reviewing the seasons, whole seasons, not all the episodes, but the whole seasons, for another podcast I've been working on called Why It's Great Television that should be coming out soon. I can't tell you when, but soon. And Angela Bassett has been wonderful on that show. I had not seen her many times in movies, although I know she's, of course, famous for being in a lot of great projects. But seeing her in American Horror Story, really getting a lot of different range, playing two very different characters between seasons because it's an anthology, and now seeing her as the president, I'm like, ooh, okay. I like it. I really like Angela Bassett as Mrs. President. And, you know, it's just that they totally steal from The Dark Knight in this movie, where her whole role is that the world is ending because of the entity, the evil program, which is really only in the last movie we really see Tom Cruise dealing with the entity. But now the entity is taking so much control over the world. People don't know what news is real and what's fake, which is very, very current, very modern. But in addition to that, we have this whole thing where she's telling Ethan, "Hey, if you don't stop this thing, I'm gonna launch nukes," because the whole thread is the entity wants to create a world-ending event where somehow it's going to rule over what remains of humanity. I don't know how that's supposed to work. I don't understand at all. It really makes no sense one little bit. But just to have her being the one that sets the stakes, I thought that's cool. I really, again, it's like you're taking it very seriously, even though it's schlocky and makes no sense. And then she ends up, misleading her own cabinet by saying, "You're arrested, Ethan Hunt." And then he's not arrested. She totally helps him complete his mission. Um, but when we get to the end of the movie and she's going to launch the missiles and then decides at the last second, no, I'm going to do what I should have done in the first place. Exact quote from The Dark Knight when the fairies are about to blow up from the Joker, unless one of them blows up the other. And the other actor who played the president in The Fifth Element, I'm forgetting your name, I'll put it right here. You may be passed. If you are, rest in peace, I'm sorry. The other actor who played the president in Fifth Element is playing a prisoner on the prisoner ferry. And he's the one who tells the guard holding the thing, "I'll do what you should have done in the first place," and takes the controller and throws it out the window of the ferry. And then that's what she tries to do. She tries to deactivate all missiles, but it's too late. The algorithm has taken over the US system of bombs. Which is, I think there was a total another way to do this movie where it's like, aren't these all controlled by like individual human beings? Or was it all upgraded to be connected to the internet? That seems like a terrible idea to connect everything to the internet when there's hackers out there who can do whatever they want. But that seems to be the case, I guess. So they stole the Dark Knight, which is fine. I don't mind it. I thought it was funny. I actually thought, wow, that's cute. Okay, you stole from the Dark Knight. We all love the Dark Knight. It still stands the test of time. Okay, whatever. But I think what really killed me was the beginning when Ving Rhames, they bring him back. He seems to be having medical issues in the show. I don't know, is that real or is that just for the character? I'm assuming it's just for the character. But then they have him be the sacrificial lamb for the beginning of the movie, and then no one else dies, which is kind of like, okay. But it just made me like, it did make me emotional in the beginning. It was like, Ving Rhames, you were from the first movie, you were in the second movie, you're a big enough part in the third movie, but I felt you were emotionally big, but then kind of not in the movie as much because now Simon Pegg is being introduced in that one. So, that was kind of a ping pong one. But then at the same time, my biggest complaint for the beginning of this movie, it's in line with something I heard. I don't know if it's exactly true, but Brian De Palma made the first Mission Impossible. And at the time, all the actors, and it's referred to so much in the beginning of this movie. In the original Mission Impossible film, the entire team is assassinated by the Jim Phelps character. And actually, I have a whole review from my older podcast, which is now canceled, Why It's Great Gut Reaction, where I talk about the clues and the meanings of that movie. So I'll link that below if you're interested in seeing that. Which is, it kind of gets into why that's my favorite movie. But so the story goes, as I've heard, is that in the first Mission Impossible, the movie essentially starts off with a big mission. All the stars, everyone on the team, I guess, were stars or known actors. They all get killed off in the beginning, and Brian De Palma shows, I guess, a early cut of the movie to George Lucas, and George Lucas says, "Okay, where's the spaghetti scene?" And what does that mean? And what he means is, where's the scene where everyone's sitting together talking and we can kind of get a feel for who they are, so that when they die, it actually means something to the movie. Which, so if that's true, then again, a testament to how genius George Lucas is. And Lucas and Spielberg are these genius filmmakers who other filmmakers go to say, hey, what's my movie missing? And that's the reason why Twister starts off with the death of Helen Hunt's dad. It's all about making sure that your movie emotionally hits the audience. It's not just about the plot being good, but that you're emotionally hitting the audience. And so part of my problem with the beginning, the first 45 minutes of the movie, is that they're doing so much work to connect all the movies. I would have happily had none of that and just have an establishment of Ethan Hunt and his team, having Ethan Hunt sort of re-avowed or brought back in, given his full team, and get that spaghetti scene one more time to see his entire team. Because what we have instead is like these very chopped up bits of conversation that seem like good scenes. This conversation with him and mostly Ving Rhames, but it's chopped up amongst all the plot stuff, and so it just doesn't hold enough weight. So when Ving Rhames' character sacrifices himself, nostalgically, as someone who has watched this series from beginning to now, nostalgically it hits me. But on the other hand, within this movie, I feel very little for it, even though technically it's following the action movie rules. I have another podcast called Action Movies Storytelling Through Action, where I talk about movies from the filmmaker's perspective. As I said in the beginning, I'm a director and filmmaker, and I've been doing it for over 17 years. Technically 20 if you count me starting making short films at 15 years old. But some of that stuff I don't count, so I feel embarrassed. But it doesn't matter. That's when I began. But over the course of time, I've studied all these movies. So I've studied what makes movies work. And it always comes down to, can the audience connect to your characters before whatever happens to them? So if it's an action movie and they die, or if it's a horror movie and they die, did we get the time to connect with them? Did how we get to their death matter, or if it's a comedy. I'll eventually do a comedy series and talk about, well, why does the comedy work? But ultimately, that was my real problem with this movie. It's not even a serious problem because at this point, for Mission Impossible 4, 5, and 6, they play each movie so fast and loose with the characters. There's not really character development in any of them, which is my problem with them, which is why I don't celebrate them. They're not going to be brought up in my action movies podcast. I'll probably talk about, the first two again. Um, but my point being, the reason I only bring this up is because I saw this chart which was ranking critically all of the Mission Impossible movies, and I forget, was it Metacritic or something like that? And it was a critical ranking of all the movies, and essentially it started from one, going in this huge lump. Oh, I think it started from one being high, dipped on two, went back up all the way to 4 and 5, and then slowly descends to number 6 kind of being the lowest critic rated. I don't know where I saw that graphic, but it was kind of a warning sign for me before Kind of Funny got me all pumped up. And I can only say, if people are walking away with that feeling, like you're feeling like, the movie was fun, but I just didn't quite feel that much for it. It all comes down to that spaghetti scene. You need to really introduce your characters and where they're coming from. And in the case of this movie, everything was done at such a bullet speed that you can't connect with anybody. And I felt kind of like, is this because of the 13-year-olds and younger kids generation being addicted to their tablets? Is that kind of why this is happening? Are they trying to make this movie accessible to the young kids and also explain everything to them as quickly as possible, which I think does a disservice to this movie and the other movies at the same time. I think that's my only real problem with the movie. I think it would really work well if we just had all the characters together in the beginning, either trying to figure out how to solve the problem, rather than having this voiceover from Angela Bassett saying, "You've been working on your own and you need to come back in." I just think that's, just have them already working. Just skip time. Have them already working. Have Angela Bassett already directly involved. And you know what I mean? I think that would be much better than the way this was delivered. I think it just became 45 minutes of a hypercut flashback stuff that didn't really matter. We don't actually need all that stuff. We just need the characters who are in the movie to be together in the same scene, interacting with each other, and see how they get closer to one another. Even having Palm Clementov, who I loved in this movie. I love Palm Clementieff in this movie. I love that actually she speaks French the entire time. I wish, again with the spaghetti scene, I wish we had her interacting with Simon Pegg more. I think there's literally untapped gold in their interactions. And when we get to the finale and she is literally performing a surgery on Simon Pegg while Simon Pegg is also telling Haley Atwell how to hack into a computer system, which is, again, one of the funniest, best scenes. This movie has so many funny scenes in it. But it's one of the funniest, best scenes in the movie. But when Palm saves Simon Pegg's life and then she's holding him so tenderly, I was like, oh man, see, I want more of this. I want more of this relationship in this movie. I feel like there's an unspoken story being told in the threads that are not really a story in this movie, where in the first Mission Impossible, the entire team dies in the beginning and a new team is made, and then most of that team dies as well, and except for Ving Rhames. And I feel like kind of the untold story here, the thing I feel is missing for the movie that would have boosted that critic rating, is that we're seeing a new team being formed and all their relationships begin, which is nice, but I just wish the movie focused more on that. and because we just had so much of Tom Cruise being by himself and convincing people to help let him do what he needs to do. And I just as well could have had all those scenes chopped in half or characters purely cut out of the movie, because all those these are good actors and they're delivering again competently made, but needless. There's a lot of needless plot delivery and plot explanation. I felt you, if at least you'd cut out the first 45 minutes of plot explanation, I could have been in more into this. But just the fact that these characters are just these one-off characters, they don't really come back. Again, the strength of the first movie is that it is a legitimate spy movie with action scenes in it, as opposed to Mission Impossible 2 Onward, which is an action movie with occasional spy work in it. And I think that's the real my issue with these movies. Not that it's a serious problem because I keep coming back, but it's just something I wish the movies did better. Which is, don't forget, this is a spy movie, not an incredible spy movie. I think 4 was fun, but it was so, it felt so much like an animated movie in a weird kind of way. I was like, the nothing feels like it should be here. I don't know what's going on. This feels very cartoony, which is like, hey, he made The Incredibles. I don't want to bash him. He made Iron Giant. I don't want to bash that director. But yeah, that's just my problem with these movies. Like, not enough character, and the action, it just goes by so fast at some points. It's like, well, what am I watching here? Like, for me, I love character and character interacting with the action. That to me is what spices it up. And I think, again, if you're going to ape off The Dark Knight, more character involvement is needed to really lock in that audience love. But again, Haley Atwell, I love her thread with the bearded guy's wife, the bearded guy who is the actor from the first movie, who he's the one who designed the vault. He was the security specialist for that vault, and I loved him coming back. I thought that was wonderful. He had a really nice scene. I thought it was cool, a really nice touch that, of course, the CIA fired him and shipped him off to the middle of nowhere, which I think they said in that movie. I want this guy in Antarctica. I don't want this guy anywhere near us ever again. You know, but the fact that he found love and had a warm home, I thought that was really sweet, and it kind of it it both scratches an itch and sets up a hope. I hope Ethan Hunt makes it out of this and gets with Haley Atwell, or gets to finally have a full life outside of the spy stuff. Which, who knows, if maybe that'll never happen. But I really liked that angle of it. But I do hope, if they choose to continue the Mission Impossible franchise, that Tom Cruise becomes the Kittredge. I would really love for Tom Cruise to become the Kittredge character and see an entirely new ensemble, but have him also be the one who selects who is my successor, who is going to be the agent who's going to save the world tomorrow, because I'm getting too old to safely do these crazy things. And I think that should really just be the start of, if they do another one. I've heard this is the last one. I don't believe it. I don't buy it for a second. I think, look at how much money this movie made. They're going to continue this series, but I hope that the next one is he finally breaks his hip, or you know what I mean. He finally like cracks his leg, and he literally can't do the Mission Impossible, and now he has to approve for some new kid to take over, and hope to God that he's the real deal. You know what I mean? So, and then, again, Haley Atwell and the experienced crew can take over, or Ethan Hunt becomes the Jim Phelps character, where it's like now he's the one basically in charge, but he's not doing the physical work anymore. Let's go back to the spy stuff. I really feel like there's a healthy balance where we can have an exhilarating action movie, but start fresh with legitimate spy movie stuff going on, and go after villains who are real villains. I think the power of the first movie, and when it comes to the spy stuff, is that Ethan Hunt successfully infiltrates the arms dealer Max, who's one of our characters from the last movie, ends up being her daughter. But he successfully infiltrates that business, which is what a spy is supposed to do. You're supposed to get someone to like you, love you, and do whatever is against their own interest as quickly as humanly possible, which is what he achieves when he enters that relationship with her, promising to get her the real knock list, which is why he breaks into that vault in the first place. But he's only doing it because even though he's off the grid, he's still technically on the job. He's positioning everything so that he can turn Max, the arms dealer, who's known for turning agents evil. He's positioning everything so that he can deliver whoever killed his team, which was Jim Phelps, and whoever paid him, which was Max, to the CIA, which was the entire purpose of his mission in the beginning of the movie in the first place. Like, the spy work is all creating relationships. And what we've gotten since Mission Impossible 1 is really special forces work. You know, the spy is supposed to get the intel, and the special forces comes in and does what they're supposed to do. And so since the second movie, the spy work has been shrinking dramatically. What I liked about the second movie is Tandy Newton becomes the one who has to be the spy, and it is I was going to say Tom Welling, and it is Tom Cruise who has to step back and watch from the computer because he's not the one who's capable of infiltrating the bad guy's institution that time around. So I thought dramatically 2 is still a spy movie with, but technically also an action movie. But yeah, that's my whole deal with these movies. I think what this movie lacked was those deeper relationships. I think 2 and 3 still tried to have deep relationships that were threatened by the villain. And I think they'll never top the first movie, which had such a personal struggle for Ethan, who was in love with Jim Phelps' wife. He was suspicious of her right away when she's the only agent who didn't get killed. And then when Jim Phelps ends up alive, he knows both of them are in on it, but he doesn't want to accept it yet. He wants proof that the wife was involved with the killing of his entire team. And so when we get to the end of that movie, and it's the famous face reveal, and Tom Cruise himself is pretending to be Phelps and essentially exposing the wife, but he also gets it all on camera so Kittredge can see who the actual guilty parties are. So the spy work, it's actual spy work, creating, developing relationships, getting intel, exposing the corrupt people involved. That to me is the genius of that first movie. And you don't even have to go as deep as that, but at least if this movie had that spaghetti scene in the beginning, establish these relationships, let us really see Ethan caring about Ving Rhames and what his character's going through, and see where he's at. Let us see some moments of Palm and Simon Pegg kind of working together, and just have us have a scene where Simon Pegg is he knows French, but he's not great at it, but they can kind of have some kind of connection so that you can feel a friendship build. Because the way it's done in this movie, you're setting up so many supporting characters who do not have valid arcs or valuable arcs to the rest of the movie. And even the introduction of Jim Phelps' son, who's also named Jim Phelps, except he's called Briggs. Okay, and I just thought that was needless, completely needless. I would have much rather. And also the same with Kittredge. I think Kittredge still not trusting Ethan, I think, is ridiculous at this point. How many times has Ethan proved right what's going on? I think keeping Kittredge stuck in the past, keeping Kittredge as Kittredge from the first movie, is the biggest sin that this movie commits, because I think if anyone should be believing in him at this point, it should be Kittredge. Because I think in a line that needed to be said, an arc that was really needed in this movie, was Kittredge saying, I have doubted you over and over and over again. And time again, you have proven how good you are, and how much you put your country and your fellow CIA agents first, and you've gotten better and better at keeping your team alive while still saving the world. If anyone should have had the doubt, it should have been Angela Bassett's character, the president, and it should have been Kittredge really saying, "Look, if there's one person in this entire room who can actually achieve our goals, it's this man. I've doubted him too many times, and he's proven me wrong too many times." Or at the very least, if you want to bring back a character, I would have loved the return of Lawrence Fishburne. And although I love Haley Atwell, I feel like she's just a return of the Tandy Newton character from the second movie. She was a spy who was really quick with her hands, and only one time was she too slow, and that's what got her caught. But other than that, like her character is the exact same character as Haley Atwell's character, and it's just at this point, it's just looking like, man, Ethan Hunt has a thing for English women. You know what I mean? Or French. English or French women are really his thing. Because the first actress from the first movie, Claire, Jim Phelps' wife, she's French. So I'm like, okay, this is all right. Something's going on here. You really like the French and English women. Nothing wrong with that. But come on, okay, I see why this is happening. But that was another one. I was like, you have such an easy in if you bring back Tandy Newton, or again, I think Lawrence Fishburne. There's like these characters who could testify to Ethan Hunt's character, but if anyone could do it, Kittredge is the exact character who should be on his side. And I think that's a lost arc that was far more important than suddenly explaining that Briggs is actually Jim Phelps. I think it was just needless. It was completely needless. I think this movie's kind of overthought. I think, I'm not trying to shit on the filmmakers, competently made, but overthought. I think it would be a stronger movie if you pulled all of that back and not worry so much about the lineage of the movies. I think just bring the knife back with that bearded guy, Dunlow. Just bring the knife back. That's all you really need to do to reference the first movie. And you already have Kittredge, so he needs the arc. Angela Bassett's character should have said, "No, you've been off. You've been off the rails for a while, and I just don't have enough experience with you to know if you're actually good or not." And it should be Kittredge instead of Angela Bassett giving all this permission. Kittredge should have been Ethan's secret helper and said, "Okay, I'm supposed to put you in jail, but I'm not. I already got someone who's going to help you out and get you on the carrier. You just go do it now. We're going to have someone else take your place," and something like that. It's just, yeah. I think there was the missed opportunities in this movie were such a treasure trove. I think if they dug into those things, the movie would be 10 times as good. Just because people still connect to characters, people still connect to relationships, and that to me is the missing sauce in this movie that I think would elevate it above literally all the rest. Because this, I will say this, despite all that I've criticized out of this movie, I do appreciate the callbacks. I do appreciate the connectivity. I do appreciate the overthinking, okay? To the point where I think this probably is my favorite Mission Impossible since the second and third movies. Because I really felt like 4 was more action and style than substance. And 5 and 6 kind of tried to bring it back and also try some new things that they hadn't done yet. But what I like about both Dead Reckoning and Final Reckoning is that just from a director standpoint, I haven't seen Christopher McQuarrie's other movies. If he's directed other stuff, I did not do the research for this one. This is New Movie Tuesdays. I'm just shooting from the hip because I'm trying to get this out at least by Tuesday night, okay? So please forgive me. But I haven't watched his other stuff. I've seen The Usual Suspects, where he wrote that movie, and that's a top notch film. But I have not seen his other directorial things other than the Mission Impossible movies that he's done. But what I will say is, I feel like this movie, my props I have to give is that Christopher McQuarrie, his directing ability has leveled up so high. You know what I mean? I felt like 5 and 6, he matched the cinematic level that 3 and 4 got to. Because 3 and 4, as much as I am not as big as fans of those movies, there's no doubt that the cinematography, the style, really got raised. They kept raising the style for the modern movie, the modern cinema. But I feel like in this particular picture, the way scenes are shot, the visual nature of the movie, Christopher McQuarrie has really leveled up his directing to such a point where I'm like, this is like Michael Bay's directing this movie, except it's not Michael Bay. You know what I mean? It's like you're at such a visual level that you have achieved making epic cinema, and I just got to have the hats off because, look, like I said, I'm a filmmaker of over 17 years. I study directors, or have studied directors. I haven't done quite as deep studying as I used to, but the number one thing I've studied from all of my favorite directors, who are all blockbuster directors at one point in their career, is their ability to control the camera, their ability to keep characters involved, regardless of whether the script did it, and most importantly, just their overall vision. Do they achieve the overall vision? And I think this movie, the vision is there with such crisp clarity. Not just that the camera usage is good and the cinematography is good, but the shot choices and the building of the tension, the way everything's shot, it feels like a big Hollywood picture. And they really did their homework, and hats off to the director, man. Really shooting this in a classical, epic movie way that makes me feel like I'm watching Armageddon or the first Transformers or Air Force One with Harrison Ford. I feel like I'm watching an epic, great movie where this is a director taking me on a ride, and I think that's the best treasure that is utilized in this film is the directing. And again, even the fact that the scenes that are funny are legitimately funny, which is something that the Mission Impossible movies have always had. They've always had a sly sense of humor sliding to a good sense of humor. It's either sly and cute or it's legitimately funny. And I think this movie achieves both. It really does the cinematique, it does the cinema well, but it also just has a wonderful sense of humor. It doesn't take itself too seriously. It remembers, hey, this is still a movie. The audience wants to have a good time. Let's make sure they're having a good time at all times. And I would just say cut it shorter and give me the spaghetti scene, and you're going to have what is already a solid experience that would raise it up to just being a legitimately great movie because all the parts are there. You know what I mean? The parts are there. I think it's just a bit hyper cut and didn't need to go to the past. We didn't need to go to the past quite as much. The callbacks that were explained about the rabbit's foot were enough, and then the knife was enough. We didn't need the rest. With that being said, that's my favorite stuff. Oh God, the Haley Atwell, the opening of this movie. I already talked about it in the spoiler-free section, but I absolutely love how this movie begins with Tom Cruise and Haley Atwell. I don't care for her just jumping into the scene. She should have already been part of it. Because his confusion, I thought, was totally enough. Just have her be part of the scene. I don't understand why this is a surprise that she's involved. But okay, she steps in. She takes the weapons and radios off the guards in the blink of an eye. And then the way the scene goes, they get the guards into a little corner behind a curtain, and I thought, wouldn't it be funny if we just don't see anything, but we just hear, like, and then they just come out fine. And the movie then cuts to behind the curtain, and we do get the hit in the head, but then it's immediately followed by two more guards showing up and tranquilizing Haley Atwell and Tom Cruise. But I absolutely love the moment of her reacting to Tom Cruise fighting the last guard, and you just hear the carnage, and seeing that final reveal of what's happening where there's suddenly a butcher knife in the guy's chest and some other guy is dead too. I'm like, what happened? And we know what happened. We've seen these movies so many times, but just that delivery, that direction, and that editing choice, all of it, that was such comedy gold, and just Haley performs it so perfectly. Stuff like that, again, the directing, it has achieved the next level in this picture. That even though I'd say the last one did a really good job, the level up was apparent, but no, this one is another level up where this time around they really know what they need to show and what they don't need to show. Well, even though I'm disagreeing with some of the things they show, but just in terms of the in the sequence moments, such as like Simon Pegg giving directions to Palm and Haley at the same time, stuff like that. Like there's certain scenes that have just such great delivery, and yeah, I'm very satisfied with this picture. And again, most importantly to me, that final action sequence. And how about that? Okay, for you who have seen this movie and aren't just sitting through the spoilers because you're contrarian or you just can't wait, you need to know. I love that not only do we get this exhilarating plane sequence where I am wondering, is Ethan Hunt actually going to make it out this time? They really did a great job of pushing that. But although it would have been nice to have a truly climactic final moment between Ethan and the bad guy, I simultaneously love that the bad guy is like hanging from his one good arm because Ethan Hunt broke his other arm, and then he screams, "I'm the only one with a parachute!" Ha ha ha! And he lets go, and then he literally hits his midsection on the back of the plane, the tail of the plane, and then knocks himself dead, and so he cannot use his parachute. I thought that was so funny that and then they managed to still keep the tension going whether or not Ethan Hunt will make it, because this villain is not personal enough to the rest of the movie to really care. You know what I mean? Which is again the part of the problem with the movie. The both the first movie and this movie hints that Ethan Hunt got in some big trouble, and that's how he got involved with the MI6 program. But I don't think that was really enough. I really feel like I would have liked to at least see that sequence in this movie, see what went on. If they did explain it in the last movie, I don't really remember. I still felt like it was more hinted at than anything else. But it would have been really nice to see it play out, to see the tension between the two guys. That this is where their drama started, and to get that sense that wow, since this happened prior to the first Mission Impossible, and now we're at the end of their story, and it's just this decades long revenge that he's been waiting to have on Ethan Hunt. I really feel like that is another piece of missed, unmined gold in this story that again is lost to all the plotty connectiness that they did. Where I don't need to see the carrier. I don't need to see the carrier general convinced of the mission. I don't need to see the submarine commander convinced of the mission. These are things that are fine, and they're logical, but unnecessary. What I need to see is why it means so much to the bad guy to take out Ethan by the end of the movie. And then it does, and then the bad guy's like, "No, but I want you guys to live in my future." Or something like, I kind of thought you wanted to kill Ethan or make him suffer. You keep trying to kill all of his people, but now you say you want him to live in your future. I just don't. It just loses weight. It doesn't hold water as it goes. The unmined treasure is what this movie sorely needed in place of some of the other stuff. But regardless, in terms of sheer entertainment, humor, action, pure momentum, new environments, fun environments to see. Again, one of my favorite sequences, or one of my favorite scenes, is Haley Atwell and Dunlow's wife, the Aboriginal. I don't know. I don't know what she is. She's some indigenous person, but she stops the snow. They have the wolves that are basically carrying them across the ice, which is again is confusing because Tom Cruise says stay away from the ice, and then that's not paid off. She goes to the ice, but at the same time, I'm like, well, ah. But but I love their scene where she stops the dogs and basically tells Haley Atwell to take over because she's gonna take a nap. I was so confused during that scene, but so was Haley Atwell, so it was fine. But once you realized, oh, she's just trying to take a nap, I was like, just this movie is just it has a touch of joy. I think that's a beautiful, wonderful thing. The movie is exhilarating and has a touch of humor and joy from beginning to end. That is, it's something that not enough Hollywood movies have. They're either too dark or they don't take themselves seriously enough. I think just so many movies fall apart because they're underthought or overthought. This is an overthought movie, but at least the effort was put into the correct places so that by the end of the movie, I do feel like I had a complete experience. I feel like the anthology of Mission Impossible movies kind of has a nice ending to it. Again, there's stuff that was not needed. I wish the things that were the unmined gold were mined, but I was just happy at the end of the movie when it wrapped up, and I was like, okay, this is how we're ending it. Okay, and yeah, so that's my thoughts on the movie, positives and negatives, and just hats off to the cast and crew. Hats off to Tom Cruise for being the producer behind this monolith of pictures, and all the cast and crew who made it happen. The stunts were fantastic. God, the underwear knife fight was just hilarious. Just hilarious. So many funny things in this movie. But those are my thoughts, and yeah. So let me know in the comments if you agree with me or disagree, or let me know if you're excited if they should make another one. Should we make a hashtag make another one, or should we let them rest on their laurels? That's my thoughts. Thank you if you made it this far. Mahalo and aloha. Hopefully, I'll see you next time.